area is about buying something from outside of the organization. So this could be one of the action item out of your risk management. One could be already decisive that you are going to produce some results or product or something which you already know that XYZ has to be procured from outside of the organization. Or it could be an action of the risk management where you find that doing a particular thing will be risky in-house, and therefore let's get it done by the other people who are expert in this area. And that is called procurement management. That is how to engage, how to define a statement of work, how to define a request for proposal, request for quotation, etc. How to get an offer, evaluate those proposals, how to get proposals, how to evaluate these proposals, and how to select a seller, how to engage that vendor into your work, how to ensure that how this work is going to happen or the work is happening as per the terms and condition or the contract we have signed with vendor. We are providing the required things to the vendor so that vendor can perform its work, and also ensuring that vendor is performing its work. And then once we get the work done from the vendor, we should give them the acceptance of the work and then close the contract. This is the process to acquire goods from outside of the organization. We have one process in planning, the second is in execution, third is in monitoring and control, and the fourth one is closing. So closing normally have only two processes. One is administrative closure and the second is the closed procurement. Closed procurement means closing the outsourced work, and administration closure means closing the project. And as you maybe it's quite obvious that closing the procurement required to be done first before we close the project. So before we close the project, everything about the project has to be closed, and therefore closed procurement come first and then administrative closure. Okay, let's understand a couple of terms used in procurement. One is called seller, buyer, and contract. So there are two things in this. One is seller, also called contractor, vendor, supplier, service provider, bidder, etc. A buyer, second is a buyer, which is also called as customer, acquiring organization, service requester, purchaser, right? And there is a third thing which bind seller and buyer together. That is called contract. The contract agreement are the legal documents which seller and buyer signs to bind themselves with each other. The terms and conditions of the contract become key for the performance of the contract. Okay, normally the process how procurement come into picture, as I mentioning in the beginning, that what you do first is the make or buy decision. That is something is a part of your deliverables. You have to take a decision, should I make it in-house or should I buy it from outside of the organization. If you decide to make, there is no procurement and none of the process in this subject applicable to your project. Most of the IT projects normally fall into this, as they don't need any raw material, or if the procurement is happening is normally of the skills, the human power, human resources normally get acquired, and that's the only procurement which I normally see in IT projects. While other projects like constructions, manufacturing, engineering projects, or any other project, if you see, none of the project is happening without a raw material. So raw material need to be purchased to buy it, and therefore if you are buying something from outside, sorry, I got to the other side. Actually, if we have decided to buy something from outside, which is a part of our product, then we go to the buy part, and then it come into picture. So it's the raw material for us. We can have in-house. It's a part of our product. We can have it in-house, or we can buy it from outside. If we decided to buy, first thing we need to create a statement of work. Then we issue a RFQ, that is request for quotation or request for proposal or request for bid, invitation for bid. So there are many terms and they vary a little bit from based on their terminology. We will come to them little later, and then receive proposals from the bidders or from the sellers. Select a seller based on some criteria you decide, and then administer the procurement. That is, if the things are happening as per the contract or as per the terms and conditions we have signed. Once we have got it, we accept and close the procurement. Okay, there are 4 processes: plan, procurement management plan, procurement management, that is preparing a procurement management plan, conduct the procurement, control the procurement, and then close it. So the first is the plan, procurement, and main idea of preparing a procurement management plan is to write a statement of work, deciding on the procurement document, deciding on a source selection criteria, deciding that how we are going to select a source. We must do a make and buy decision. That is the first thing we need to do, and there could be a change request possible. Okay, the first we do make and buy analysis, and based on that everything else happens. The one of the main input, if you see in this, the requirement document, the risk register, activity resources, project schedule, activity cost estimate, stakeholder register, enterprise environmental factor, and organization process assets. So one of the major input comes from the organization process assets, which prescribe the contract type, that what kind of contract type we should get into with the vendor. Okay, so if you see all these inputs, the organization process asset here, you will see a type of contract which are prescribed in this. We need to use it. So first we need to understand the type of contract. So what are the type of contract? There are broadly 3 types of contract. There is a fixed price contract. We also call it firm fixed price. There is a cost reimbursement and time and material. Firm fixed price, there are variations in this. There are benefits, the advantage and disadvantage of all this, and there are circumstances in which we can use them. Not everything can be used at any incidence. Okay, there are various situations in which a particular type of contract will be more suitable. If you move into another type of contract, there is a possibility that you move into more problems and you work more than required. Okay, so first is firm fixed price contract. That is, in this the final price is fixed. If vendor does the things efficiently, he saves more money. If he does it inefficiently, he have to get less money or suffer losses as well. Cost reimbursement means the vendor does the work and all the cost is reimbursed by the seller, by the buyer to the seller, and seller also provide a fee as a profit to the buyer. Buyer also provide a fee to the seller as a profit. Time and material is a hybrid of fixed price and cost reimbursement. In this, something is fixed but something is not fixed. So what is fixed? The rates are fixed. The rates are fixed while the total cost of the project is not fixed based on that. So whatever the work is done is done at the rate of provided rate. So let's go into these variations and see how understand these. So what is the firm fixed price contract? Is also called lump sum contract, and this is basically when the vendor goes and put up a price for the work to be done. If the seller or buyer both come together and find that this price is good, they move into a contract. Now once they move into a contract, the price is fixed unless there is a change in the project scope. If the project scope doesn't changes, then the price does not change. Therefore, all the risk in this type of project, in this type of contract is on seller. But there is an opportunity for seller also. If seller does the things more efficiently, more effectively, he can generate more profit for him because the price is not going to change. If he reduces its cost, his profit will go up. But if he could not control his cost, his profit will reduce and may be negative as well. What are the circumstances or situation in which we should use this? When the requirements are well defined. When the requirements are well defined, scope is well known, ambiguity is very, very less, and seller is in the position to estimate and provide an quote for that. There are some variations like fixed price plus incentive fee. Means I give a fixed price to have a fixed price, and whatever the price we have settled, it will be given by the buyer to seller, plus there is an incentive fee attached to it. It means normally something like that to meet a specific objective. You can tell that if you deliver a week before, we will give you 5% of the total cost, or the 1% of the total cost, or 10% of the total cost. It depends upon what buyer want to put up. So this is an incentive, and this incentive actually encourage seller to meet the objective. So the objective is put in front of seller, and also the incentive of that. So if the seller say 1 week, if you deliver the project 1 week early, you will get 2% of the total sum, then he awarded. So what is the benefit of incentive fee? The benefit of incentive fee that you and your seller, that is the buyer and seller, both have same objectives. Both have same objectives. So their objectives are aligned. So you want to get it early. The buyer, now once you put up an incentive, the seller also want to do early. Right? You understand this? The incentive fee actually motivate seller to meet your objective. So both people's objective become same. So it will help to align the objectives of the seller and buyer. There is something called fixed price with economic price adjustment. You might have understood by the name that it is for the long-term projects where the inflation is going to play a role, and based on inflation rate, the price may be revised over a period of time, and there can be increase or decrease based on how the inflation goes. So the price get adjusted every time period, maybe a quarter, maybe an year, maybe a 2 year, or kind of thing, whatever it is, and with the inflation rate. On the other side, we have cost reimbursement contract. They are normally suitable when the requirements are not firm, when the requirements are being evolved, when the scope is not well defined. It will be defined when you are doing the work. So in this case, vendor is normally not in the position to provide a quote, and therefore cost reimbursement type of contracts are best in this. In this, what happens? The buyer pays all the reimburse all the costs the seller is incurring, plus provide a fee as a profit. Right? There are a couple of variations in this. One is cost plus incentive fee. You may come to know that, like, the buyer can put up see that if the seller can complete the work within that particular cost, then X amount will be given to him. So to control the cost, because it is mainly depend, if the cost, the money is paid by the buyer, but it is mainly depend upon the seller. To align the seller with the cost objective, you can say that if you complete this particular work within this particular amount, then you will get a incentive fee. Okay, so it aligns the objective of the seller and buyer. Second is the cost plus fixed fee. So a fixed fee is basically a fee doesn't increase and it's come as a profit to the seller. There is something called cost plus award fee. The award is nothing but is a higher incentive. So when the amount is big, we call it as an award fee instead of incentive. The third type of contracts called unit price or the time and material. Here, why it is called hybrid? Because they are called hybrid because the rate is fixed, but the total amount of the project is not fixed like a cost reimbursement. So like fixed price, the rate is fixed, but like cost reimbursement, the total amount of the project is not fixed. Now this is because the rate is fixed and rate includes a percentage of the seller's profit. So as the cost increases, the seller's profit also increases because seller's profit is in percentage of the cost there. So what is a rate? Rate is a rate plus cost plus percentage of profit on the cost. So this, if you see, this is the most dangerous type of contract for the buyer. The biggest risk is to the buyer. Buyer has a highest risk in this type of contract. But if the buyer doesn't have the good requirements or doesn't have a good skills of that particular type, then they normally take this kind of contracts. And normally these kind of contracts are used for staff augmentation or hiring experts, etc. Okay. So these are the type of contracts which are normally used, and based on the what is the situation in your project, you can decide on which type of contract I should go into. With respect to risk, you can see that FPP has the lowest risk for buyer but highest risk for the seller. On the other side, time and material has the highest risk for the buyer and lowest risk for the seller. Okay, so other tools and techniques here, buy and make analysis, etc. And then you come out with the procurement management plan. And the procurement management plan is basically about what type of contract you have chosen, what are the standard documents, how you're going to, what is your source selection criteria, what are the constraint and assumption in this type of contract, how you're going to, like what is the schedule of deliverables which you want, the RFP, RFQ, RFP, the bid document. If you have a pre-qualified seller, then list of pre-qualified seller. And also how you're going to make this contract or make this procurement, everything about this is written in the procurement management plan. The next step in this is, okay, you have the procurement management plan, and the part of that also there is a SOW which you will give to the vendor, a procurement document which will be floated for the vendors, on which the vendor will respond, and a source selection criteria for based on which you will decide on the seller or selective seller. Okay, and it contains various type of things that on what basis you will select them. So some are technical qualifications, some are experience qualifications, some are costing, the IPR, property right, etc. Now the second process in this, once you have a plan, so you go ahead and conduct the procurement. That is, floating the RFP or RFQ or IFB and asking for the proposal and awarding a contract to the seller. So there is something called bid conference, proposal evaluation techniques, independent estimates. I will explain them, and basically the idea is to select a seller and sign an agreement with him. All the previous documents are useful here. So you have a statement of the work which will be used to give to the seller once the contract is signed. So in tools and techniques, first thing will come as a bidder conference. What is a bidder conference? Suppose you want to hire. You have given your RFP to one person, two person, third person, fourth person. Right? Now they have some questions. Right? How are you going to address them? You call a bidder conference and ask everyone to throw questions to you. You respond to them. So you call a meeting, you call everyone, ask them to request them to ask their question in open so that everybody listen. Your answers are also be listened by everyone. At the end of the day, you create a transcript of all the bidder conference and send it to all. So everybody has all the information, all the answer of the question which even they have not asked, and that's help everyone to be at par to bid for this proposal. And therefore this is a fair chance for everyone. Then you go on to the proposal evaluation technique. So you decide, you have a source selection criteria. You decide that how we're going to select the seller and let the seller know about it, how they're going to be evaluated. The third thing is independent estimates. That is, many times we do not know the estimates and we are not very sure about the estimates. So what we do, we hire a consultant and ask them to estimate, or we go for there are very many organizations who keep publishing their data, and we see that similar kind of work can be work is done on what is the standard rate for that or standard price for that, and then you prepare an independent estimate, and they are used to benchmark the responses. So you have hired a consultant, he has done some kind of estimate. When the proposals comes, you benchmark all the proposal against this independent estimate to find out which one is better. Advertising, you know that people need to know, all the public advertisements should be done. Analyze, not necessary, but normally in public, government and public, they are always done. Now procurement negotiations will happen. There is a fair possibility that even if you are not selected, somewhere you are lacking or some cost concerns are there, then you can ask the vendor to come down and discuss about if he can do some with some negotiations. You can work out some equation with them because he is qualified on some other areas which you possibly like. A source selection criteria could be like this. Like you have decided to weigh the proposals based on presentation, capabilities and price. Under this you have given 60, all three you have given equal weightage, and then under this you have given 60% of the team and 40% for the format they have presented. You have given 50% weightage to technical, 25% for weightage for company, and 25% for previous experience. Then on the price you have given 85% weight for the day rates, and expenses you have given for 15. Based on that is complete 100%. So every proposal you weigh against these criteria. Once you weigh all these three criteria, you get a fair comparison and it becomes easy for you to select. Okay, I think there is a question. Difference between RFQ and RFP. Okay, so it is like that. There is something called RFP. There is something called RFQ. There is something called RFI. There is something called IFB. They are similar terms, but their focus is different. This is request for proposal. This is for request for quotation. This is request for information. This is invitation for bid. So invitation for bid and request for quotation are more or less same. Their focus is the quotation. The primary criteria is the price. They look for the price. RFI mainly focusing on the information. You give us the information. Quotation at this point of time is not important. The third is request for proposal. This is the most detailed type of things. Proposal means you give us the details, information, you give us your approach, you tell us how you're going to do this work, and then tell us the price of the product. So it contains this, both this and this both. So what about EOI? What is EOI? Expression of interest. Expression of interest is for the pre-qualification. There is something called pre-qualification. Pre-qualification means before you float the bid, you put in expression of interest. So find out who are the people interested in bidding for such a thing. That's limited to that only. After that, RFP, RFQ, RFI you send to only those people who showed interest, not to everyone. Now as an output of this, you select a seller because you have floated RFP, RFQ and you got the response. You have a like selection criteria, you take them through selection criteria, decided some seller, do some negotiations and conclude with one seller and get into the agreement with this seller. Okay, and you write on statement of work, performance reporting, all the rules and regulation, pricing, etc. You sign a contract with this. Okay, the third thing is about control procurement. What is controlling the procurement? Controlling the procurement is during the execution of the control. Though the controlling procurement is part of the monitoring and control, but is actually controlling the execution of the work to be done. Okay, so you have already conducted the procurement. Procurement is happening now. The work is happening. At that time, you control it. So, what your intention is? What buyer's intention is to make sure that the vendor meet the contractual obligation. In fact, you also or the seller, and it cannot be possible that only seller obey the contract. The buyer also has to obey the contract. The service product are being provided as per the contract, and also you also providing input to the vendor as per the contract. So contract is something which is written in the contract and has to be obeyed because it's a legal document and can be challenged in the court of law, and they can decide based on that. Therefore, whatever written, you should write things carefully. Whatever written in the contract is the God's word and has to be obeyed by seller and buyer both in letter and spirit. So for that you must have a change control system in place so that you can entertain changes and incorporate in the scope of the project. You should have a performance criteria and do performance review based on that. Performance reviews are nothing but inspection and audits. Report the performance, get from the vendors. You should have a payment system based on your milestones and the frequency at which you have agreed upon with the seller. Get the invoice and pay the money. And claim administration means if you have any dispute, you please negotiate and close them. So claims are the disputes which are like where seller and buyer do not agree. And record management is to maintain the paperwork or any other thing, any tracking, anything with respect to the contract should be recorded in the record system. So not necessarily paper. Nowadays the papers are vanishing. Okay, it is all on soft side. What you get is the plan versus actual and the project request and the change request in case you need to raise one. So as a control procurement, you should establish a change control system which we learn in the perform change control in the integration management. The similar kind of change control system should be put in for the procurement also, so that changes can be incorporated and their impact can also be incorporated properly. There should be no scope creep. You should do some inspection and audit to see that the things are happening as per the contract, as per the agreement, as per the SOW, and you are getting those things. You should be able to get the performance report from the seller and reflect the same performance report in your own reporting. So the seller should provide performance reporting and show that they are complying to all the rules and regulations. You should have a payment system in place. Payment system means get the invoice as per the schedule documented in agreement or contract, and you pay the money to the vendor as per the terms and condition. The claim administration is about managing disputes, managing appeals. So this is also called claim, it is also called dispute, it is also called appeal. Could be some other names as well. The idea is that if seller and buyer are not agreeing on some of the thing, it is called claim, dispute and appeal. Then there should be a proper mechanism written in the procurement plan that how we are going to settle them. You can negotiate and settle them. You can go to some regulator and ask him to settle. There should be some arbitrator again between you both to resolve the disputes. If nothing can be done, then you can also go to the court of law. However, it is recommended that every other thing should be evaluated and seen that it is happening, it is taken care of, it has been evaluated that this is not working, only then you go into the court. Record management system help us to record, to store and retrieve all the documents related to the procurement. So the reporting work performance information talk about what was the plan of procurement and how we are doing in actual against that, and if there is a variation, raise a change request to correct it. Okay, so this is how you can control the execution of the procurement contract, execution of the contract. And the last thing is that once all the deliverables are done, once you have received everything, you should provide an acceptance to the vendor, or the seller or the buyer should provide the acceptance to the seller and close the contract. So complete the procurement, verify that all the work and deliverables are given to you and you have accepted them. If there is any claim or dispute, you have settled them down. If you have not settled them, you will not be able to close the procurement. Okay, so what you do is do some procurement audit to ensure that all the work is being done as per the rules and regulations, all the terms and conditions are met, the vendor has complied and you also have complied, so do the procurement audit. If there are dispute issues, problems with between vendor and seller, the negotiation should be done and to resolve them. And before you close the litigation is normally supposed to be the last option. Record all the documents related to the contract, status report, changes, etc. in the record management system so that you can retrieve them later. Archive everything about it and then close the procurement. You can also do a root cause analysis or lesson learned meeting. So what you get is the procurement file at the end, that is the archival of the procurement documents. Deliverables are accepted and lesson learns are documented. And that will close the procurement and that will close the procurement management chapter as well.